It took a Los Angeles landlord nearly 3 years to evict the tenant, and it cost her over $200,000. And the tenant left a little bit of a surprise in 80 square feet of blood in the unit after being evicted. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have another nightmare tenant story coming out of this great city of Los Angeles, California. I tell you all the time, I wouldn't invest there. And these stories that I bring you are the exact reason why, okay? They are nightmares, okay? It would be awful to deal with this sort of tenant. You know, you think everything's going fine. You're like, hey, I've got a high quality tenant in here. They're paying me a good monthly rent. But all it takes is one time for things to go wrong and you could end up upside down forever, okay? And this situation here, we're talking about a lady who lost, in combination with the lost rent, the property damage, etc., $200,000, okay? $200,000 and peace of mind. Peace of mind is worth more than the money itself, because when you're sitting there and you're stressed and you're losing it, so, it can cause a heart attack in some people. It's just awful. It's absolutely awful. So when you have a tenant who takes advantage of the situation, like the one in this story here, it makes my blood boil. It makes my blood boil because I feel for the landlords there who thought that, hey, you know what, we're going to hold on to this property and maybe sell it in the future for a nice profit. And in this story, we have what I like to call an accidental landlord. So they took a unit that they used to live in and turned it into a rental property when they moved elsewhere. And unfortunately, in a place like Los Angeles, that just doesn't work, okay? It doesn't work because you have to be very intentional when you are buying a rental property, and you could end up in a situation like this one right here. My suggestion would have been, hey, if you're not gonna live there anymore, sell the place and buy rental properties in a landlord-friendly state. Pretty simple, right? And for the profit that you would have made off of the property when you sold it, you probably could have bought quite a decent place in Arizona or in Nevada or in Texas, or, I'm just using those places as an example because they're popular places to invest. Anyway, let me get into this story. I want you to know why I personally would never, ever, even if I already owned a property in California, I would never turn it into a rental. Okay, anyway, let's get into it. This article is coming from businessinsider.com, and it says, it took a woman 3 years and cost her $200K to kick a tenant out of her LA home. She says she cried when she saw the bloody mess he left. Yeah, bloody mess. And I mean literally blood, okay? So let's get into it. When Allison Weinswig, 67, rented her luxury Westwood apartment to a tenant in 2020, she never anticipated it would turn into an almost 3-year ordeal, let alone one that would set her back more than $200,000. It was a strain on many levels, she told Business Insider. I felt terribly violated, she added. I never thought I'd get him out. I thought I'd be stuck with him for the rest of my life. When Weinswig finally gained access to her property in April, she found it in an eerie state of disarray, which caused her to run out in tears. Images provided to BI appear to show blood-stained floors, cracked countertops, and, disturbingly, a real life-sized human dummy. And yeah, that's kind of craziness going on here, right? Blood-stained floors, cracked countertops, and a human dummy. And I don't know what the prior tenant was doing with it, but I always think that this could be something, well, I don't even want to mention it, but you use your imagination with what someone could be doing with a life-size human dummy and with bodily fluid stains on the floor, okay? They have some pictures here. I'll throw a couple of pics up on the screen so you can get an idea of the damage that was done. It looks, I guess that's a picture of the, well, I don't know what that is, but I'll throw that pic up on the screen so you can see it. But yeah, basically we have the case of a landlord who, obviously we know what happened in 2020 that would cause people to be able to get away with not paying rent. And that was the pandemic. And they put the eviction moratoriums into place. They said that tenants didn't have to pay rent. And that put landlords in a terrible position. And let me go a little bit further, because they explain that even though rent assistance was available, it still did not work out right for her. Now she's left picking up the pieces, needing to fork out thousands of repairs according to contractor estimates seen by BI. On top of the more than $170,000 she said she had already lost in unpaid rent. Weinswig, a semi-retired real estate broker, purchased the 2-bedroom penthouse on Wilshire Boulevard in 2004 and lived there for a decade before moving to Pennsylvania to be with her unwell mother. She had previously rented it out to 2 tenants without issue and expected Ramin Kohanim's tenancy to be no different. So this is a real estate broker. She knows real estate in LA. She probably made, she purchased this place in 2004. It's obviously 2024 right now. So you own the place for 20 years. You probably made a fortune in appreciation just off of this place. You thought, hey, everything is cool, but even a real estate professional can get burned in this manner, okay? So I'm not saying that she didn't, overall, even with this loss, make money. But what I am saying is, was it worth the headache? Was it worth the headache? You moved out. It says that you lived there for 10 years. So you lived up there till 2014 and you've been gone for the last 10 years. And now you found out that, hey, probably every single money that you made in rental income is gone. Every penny, every single bit of money that you made in rental income is gone. If you lost $200,000 in rent, okay? That's insane, so all the rental income that you possibly were making, you didn't get any of it once all was said and done. It's awful, that you had to subsidize this person's living for so long. But anyway, let me continue. He appeared to be a reasonable tenant, she said, noting that a rental agency had vetted him, showing a social security number, an acceptable credit score, and an account with significant funds. But Weinswig said that even if there were red flags, she would have likely overlooked them. She was too focused on her mom getting better. She explained that the first year of Kohanim's tenancy was unremarkable, despite some late payments. But after he signed on for a second year in July of 2021, things got messy. He paid the first month and never paid anything again, Weinswig claims. Now, I want you to pay attention to that date, right? So the first year of his tenancy, all throughout the year 2020, when the pandemic got started, when all the restrictions were the absolute worst, he paid his rent just fine. He didn't start having trouble paying rent until he renewed his lease in July of 2021. Okay, that was more than a year after the pandemic had started. Now, I don't know how things were exactly in Los Angeles at the time. I know that in 2021, things were opening back up here. I think that things were still kind of shut down in Los Angeles at the time, right? So it wouldn't be surprising to me if this guy lost his employment or whatever. But keep in mind, landlord-friendly state where I live, eviction moratorium was already over, okay? And even during the eviction moratorium, there were still easy ways that you could have removed a tenant, like, just not renewing their lease. There was nothing to say that you couldn't do that anymore. So, it really depended on where you lived during this whole nonsense on whether you were facing financial, destruction or not. Whether you had to just accept that the tenants were not paying rent or not. And, that's why I say these sort of laws that, they think that they forget so easily. People forget easily. Just a few years ago, we went through one of the most nightmarish situations ever. And rather than sitting there and saying, hey, we're going to change the laws to make sure that something like this never happens again, that we never have an eviction moratorium again, we never have ridiculous lockdowns again, we never have people being forced into unemployment again. We should change the law to make sure that this never happens again. But instead, they're just like, oh, whatever. Whatever. You know, businesses are gone forever. Everything, you know, like even now, things are not the same as they were back in 2019. They're not, okay? The economy is completely different. You know, the workforce is completely different. A lot of people just disappear from the workforce. You know, a lot of jobs have changed. You know, like interest rates are through the roof, which the interest rate thing alone has caused certain businesses that used to thrive back in 2019, like, you know, the tech companies, the IT jobs, they're just, you know, now they're failing because they don't have the access to cheap money anymore. And that has had a big impact on the rental markets in a lot of places. Now, you know, I'm not saying that it's good or bad. I do believe that they need, you know, raising the interest rates was necessary in order to handle inflation, but we should have never been put into that position in the first place. Okay? They shouldn't have been printing money and giving out stimulus checks and telling people to stay home and then paying rental assistance in the first place. We should have been getting our rent from the tenants and not the government. Basically, they created the awful situation that we're in right now. If it wasn't for them and their ridiculous, you know, government blowout of money, we'd probably be still with low interest rates right now. And we would have recovered from the pandemic without the government interference. That was the problem. The government interference caused more problems than the pandemic itself did. You know, this is why I am not for big government, okay? This is why I'm a person who is anti-regulation, anti-government control, anti-socialism, because we see the flaws in it. We see that it doesn't work. But anyway, I'm on a rant. Let me skip down in the story a little bit, and it says, despite repeated excuses, Weinswig stated she received no rent for months, prompting her to take legal action in January of 2022. According to legal documents reviewed by BI, the tenant was subject to the COVID-19 Tenant Relief Act, which prevented evictions for non-payment of rent for those experiencing hardship due to the pandemic. After Kohanim's application for rental assistance was approved, Weinswig received a fraction of the lost rent, and the case was automatically dismissed that summer. So basically, he put in an application for rental assistance. I'm not saying that he didn't, you know, need rental assistance due to unemployment. He probably did, right? But the landlord did not get the money that was actually owed to them. So, you know, that's my big problem with the rental assistance. I put that in so many of my videos back in the day that said, hey, rental assistance is not going to pay you all of the money that you are owed. It's only going to give you a fraction of that amount. And only if your tenant meets the qualifications to even receive rental assistance. So, yeah, immediately it says that after Kohanim's application for rental assistance was approved, her case was automatically dismissed. So she had an eviction case. She didn't get all the money that she was owed, but then her eviction case gets dismissed, which puts her back at the back of the line again. And later that year, Weinswig filed another lawsuit seeking possession of the premises and monetary damages, but it did not go as planned. So basically, she had to file eviction again because this guy still wasn't able to pay the rent and, you know, still owed a significant amount of money. So, wow, you know, I feel for this lady. You know, she lost a ton of money on this. Really bad situation, but you know, the condition that this tenant left the place in really kind of it shocked me, right? And so it says that during the hearing, Kohanim conceded that there was discharge on a mattress, though he and his attorney dismissed the rest of the damage as normal wear and tear. Discharge on a mattress. Well, you know, believe me, if I find an old mattress in a unit after I got a tenant out, I would just throw that thing away. That wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't be anything that we would be keeping in the unit. And Kohanim's attorney told the court that his client wasn't the best tenant in the world or the cleanest, but he refuted that the apartment had been intentionally destroyed. The judge disagreed, stating that 80 square feet of blood is not normal wear and tear. So the judge was like, yeah, I don't know why there's 80 square feet of blood in this unit, but that's not normal, and you need to pay the landlord for the damages. Anyway, I'll put a link to this article in the description. This is in Business Insider, and I know somehow I got in here without needing a subscription, but most of the time when you go on this website, you have to have a subscription to read the articles, but maybe you can somehow figure out some way to sneak in there and read this thing.